He broke every rule and somehow got away with it. While basketball fans celebrate John Stockton as the NBA's all-time assists and steals leader, a shocking truth lurks beneath his seemingly spotless reputation. This same man, praised for his fundamentals and clean-cut image, was secretly voted the second dirtiest player in the entire NBA. The Utah Jazz legend crafted a career of statistical dominance by day, while allegedly employing some of basketball's most underhanded tactics by night. Few players in NBA history have amassed a resume like John Stockton's. 19 seasons, all with the Utah Jazz. 15,806 career assists, a record that may never be broken. 3,265 steals, another seemingly untouchable milestone. 10 All-Star appearances and membership in the prestigious 50th and 75th anniversary teams. His partnership with Karl Malone produced one of basketball's most lethal pick-and-roll combinations, terrorizing defenses throughout the 80s and 90s.
John Stockton with 11 assists. They're on their feet. A new NBA assist king of the NBA.
On paper, Stockton embodied everything a franchise could want: durability, consistency, and professionalism. He rarely missed games. He never sought the spotlight. His short shorts and plain appearance made him seem like basketball's everyday working man, the anti-showman in an era of growing NBA glamour. But talk to the players who actually competed against him, and an entirely different picture emerges. While cameras focused on the ball, Stockton was allegedly conducting a masterclass in basketball's dark arts away from view. Those who guarded him didn't see a model of sportsmanship. They experienced what many considered one of the league's most frustrating, physical, and borderline dirty competitors. This wasn't just locker room talk. In 1997, Sports Illustrated conducted a player poll asking who was the dirtiest player in the NBA. Dennis Rodman, basketball's notorious bad boy, took first place to no one's surprise. But the shock came with the runner-up, John Stockton, the same player celebrated for his fundamental brilliance and calm demeanor. What exactly made Stockton earn this dubious distinction? According to opponents, it started with his approach to defense. While his steals record showcases remarkable anticipation skills, many claim these statistics were supplemented by a persistent physicality that often crossed the line. Stockton was known for committing strategic hard fouls, particularly when opponents threatened fast break opportunities. These weren't the flagrant, headline-grabbing fouls that would earn suspensions, but calculated hits delivered with perfect timing to disrupt flow and momentum. More concerning were the allegations surrounding his off-ball tactics. Multiple players reported experiencing a pattern of subtle but effective contact away from the primary action. Little bumps, strategically placed nudges, and what some described as quick elbow jabs to the ribs or torso. These actions occurred in basketball's blind spots, areas difficult for referees to monitor consistently. While individual instances might seem minor, the cumulative effect created a significant physical and psychological disadvantage for defenders throughout a 48-minute game. What made these tactics particularly effective was their invisibility. Television broadcasts follow the ball, meaning viewers at home rarely witness these off-ball encounters. Stockton's unremarkable appearance and controlled demeanor further insulated him from suspicion. While players with more flamboyant personalities or intimidating physiques might receive heightened scrutiny from officials, Stockton's ordinary presence allowed certain behaviors to fly under the radar. Perhaps no aspect of Stockton's game generated more controversy than his screening techniques. The pick and roll was Utah's offensive bread and butter, with Stockton setting up screens for Karl Malone countless times each game. For this play to work effectively, the screen needed to create separation between the defender and ball handler. According to NBA rules, a legal screen requires the screener to be stationary at the point of contact. Opponents frequently accused Stockton of violating this fundamental rule. The allegation was that he would establish the initial position for a screen, but then subtly shift as the defender approached. This slight movement, sometimes just an inch or two, could make the difference between a defender successfully navigating around the screen and colliding with the screener. Over thousands of pick-and-roll attempts throughout his career, even a small percentage of illegal screens would translate to a significant competitive advantage. More serious was what became known as the kneeing allegation. Multiple players claimed that Stockton would occasionally extend his knee while setting a screen, creating not just an illegal obstacle, but a potentially dangerous one that risked injury to unsuspecting defenders. While specific video evidence confirming this technique is limited, the persistence of this claim across different opponents and seasons suggests it wasn't merely isolated incidents or fabricated accusations. What's particularly notable about these screening controversies is how they intersected with Stockton's basketball intelligence. Many argued that he developed a sophisticated understanding of how officials called moving screens and then exploited the gray areas. He seemed to recognize exactly how much movement he could get away with without drawing a whistle, creating what one might call a masterclass in rule bending rather than rule breaking. The Jazz's offensive system magnified these issues. Because their offense relied so heavily on the pick and roll, Stockton set an unusually high number of screens for a point guard. Each game presented dozens of opportunities to employ these controversial techniques, with playoff matchups against rivals like the Portland Trail Blazers, Seattle Supersonics, or Chicago Bulls intensifying both the frequency and scrutiny of these plays. Crucially, these accusations didn't come from casual observers or bitter fans. They emerged from fellow professionals, the players who spent years competing against Stockton in high-stakes situations. While isolated complaints might be dismissed as sour grapes, the volume and consistency of these criticisms across different teams and eras suggest a pattern of behavior that deserves serious consideration when evaluating his legacy. For his part, Stockton rarely addressed these controversies directly during his playing days. His post-game interviews typically focused on team performance rather than individual incidents. This professional reticence, admirable in many contexts, also meant that allegations went largely unchallenged from his perspective, creating a one-sided narrative that persisted throughout and beyond his career. Some defenders of Stockton's playing style point to the broader context of the NBA during his prime years. The 1980s and 1990s represented a more physically demanding era in professional basketball compared to today's game. Hand-checking was permitted, interior play featured greater contact, and officials generally allowed more physical interaction between opponents. From this perspective, what might seem excessive by current standards could be considered within the norms of that more rugged era. However, the counter-argument is that even by the standards of his time, Stockton pushed the boundaries further than most. The 1997 Sports Illustrated poll suggests that his contemporaries and the very players accustomed to the physical nature of that era still viewed his tactics as crossing a line that most competitors respected. Perhaps most telling is the striking lack of formal disciplinary action throughout Stockton's career. Despite widespread perceptions among fellow players, he was rarely suspended or significantly fined for on-court misconduct. This apparent contradiction can be interpreted in multiple ways. Supporters might argue that the absence of penalties reflects the legitimacy of his playing style, that despite complaints, officials with the clearest view found his actions within the rules. Critics counter that this actually demonstrates his greatest skill, the ability to commit borderline infractions with such subtlety that they escape consistent detection and punishment. The subjectivity inherent in basketball officiating certainly played a role. The interpretation of fouls and illegal screens involves human judgment, and referees may not have consistently viewed Stockton's actions as severe enough to warrant penalties. Additionally, the sheer volume of screens set throughout his career meant that even if officials caught a small percentage of violations, many more would inevitably go uncalled. Stockton's playing style also benefited from a kind of reputation management that his more flamboyant peers couldn't access. Players who cultivated tough guy personas or had histories of confrontational behavior received heightened scrutiny from officials. Stockton's clean-cut image and controlled demeanor created a contrast that may have influenced how refs interpreted borderline plays. There's also the uncomfortable possibility that Stockton's remarkable statistical achievements and consistent high level of play simply overshadowed criticisms of his methods. The NBA, like any sports league, celebrates its stars and record holders. Emphasizing controversial aspects of play might have seemed counterproductive to promoting one of the game's most accomplished point guards. The final analysis of John Stockton's career reveals a fascinating duality. He stands as one of basketball's most accomplished players, a floor general whose assists and steals records may remain untouched for generations. His durability, consistency, and basketball intelligence place him among the greatest point guards ever to play the game. Yet simultaneously, a persistent shadow hangs over these achievements. The dirty player label, while subjective and certainly influenced by the intensity of competition, reflects a genuine perception that existed widely within the league. The question isn't whether Stockton employed physical tactics. By most accounts, he clearly did. Rather, the debate centers on whether these methods should be viewed as skillful, competitive gamesmanship or as tactics that crossed ethical boundaries. Understanding the full picture of Stockton's playing career requires considering both his statistical brilliance and the controversial methods that may have contributed to those numbers. It requires acknowledging both his basketball genius and the ways he might have exploited the limitations of officiating to gain advantages. Despite these controversies, Stockton's place in NBA history remains secure. He orchestrated one of basketball's most efficient offenses for nearly 2 decades. His consistency and longevity set standards few players have matched. His basketball intelligence allowed him to control games, despite lacking the athletic gifts of many contemporaries. Ultimately, the John Stockton story reminds us that greatness in sports rarely comes in simple, unambiguous packages. Even the most celebrated careers can contain complexities and contradictions that resist easy categorization. Perhaps this makes his legacy not less significant, but more fascinating, a testament to the intricate relationship between brilliance and controversy that defines so many legendary athletic careers.